affirmations that we do every single month. We have our little blessings on the table. And we're always told to mind our thoughts, right? Pay attention to your thoughts. And as I try to do this every day, I realize this is kind of how it goes, and you can tell me if you resonate with this. I'm sitting at a traffic light. The light has turned to green. The person in front of me is just on their phone or whatever they're doing. And I'm like, are we waiting for a different shade of green? What is happening here? Right? And then I think, oh, that wasn't kind. So I pull that thought and I send love and light. And then a cashier is training and she can't scan items in and everything. And I'm like, and I may not have a thought, but I have an attitude. Right? And then immediately I'm like, wait a second, that's not unity. That isn't who I am. And I pull it and I put another thought. So my whole day becomes pulling and replacing, pulling and replacing, pulling and replacing, pulling and replacing. And I was thinking about that and I was like, wait a second, is that how it's supposed to work? What do you think? Yes? Chuck thinks that's how it's supposed to work? That feels exhausting to me. Doesn't it feel exhausting? What if we actually look at where the thoughts are coming from and shift at that level? I think about these pulling and replacing as, perhaps there's spinach growing in your garden and you really want kale. I like kale, or you want something that you want. You can replace kale with anything that you like. And so every time the spinach comes up, you're like, I don't want spinach. I'm going to push a kale plant in there instead. Why don't you just plant kale? Doesn't that seem more? So I was wondering about this and ruminating on it. And I remembered a book that I'd read some time ago, and it's called Mindset. I don't know if any of you have read this book or heard of it. By Carol Dweck. And I brought it so if you want to screenshot it or take a look at it, you can. So, Carol Dweck was a very young researcher, and she wanted to look at the relationship between people and failure. How do they respond to failure? So, to work on this, she devised a series of puzzles, and she had kids come in one by one and work on the puzzles. Now, each puzzle grew increasingly more difficult. And she got some of the results she expected to get. She thought she would get people who would just do well in the puzzles, and then when they got too hard, they would say, you know what, it's too hard for me and I'm giving up. That's pretty much what she got. But there were some kids who said, one little kid said, oh, I was hoping this would be informative as he's struggling with a hard puzzle. And another kid clapped his hands together and said, I love a challenge. Now, Carol Dweck, as I said, was very young at this time, and she literally looked at these kids and thought, what is wrong with you? I mean, is there something wrong with these children? This is not how we respond to failure. But as she watched them and observed what was going on, she realized they weren't seeing it as failure at all. They were seeing it as an opportunity to get smarter. So this was a big revelation for her. She decided to follow this through. And so what she realized from this is that she could name two different mindsets that were at play here. There's a fixed mindset, which is you give up when the obstacle arrives or the setback. And the growth mindset sees it as a challenge. All right? Now I want to tell you something. Every time I'm going to give a talk or write a song or whatever I'm going to do, my life comes in and goes, oh, really? That's what you're going to do? Here, we'll give you some homework. So I got here this morning and I forgot all my notes and my iPad and everything I usually bring with me on Sunday. So I was like, oh, I'm giving a talk. I got nothing. I do have something, but just telling you, life has a way of just kind of making you Practice what you preach. So prayer chaplain, do your thing for me. So she's continuing her research. And she devised a little scenario. And this is with young adults. This is later. So she pulled in these young adults and she created a little scenario. And she said, I'm going to describe the scenario to me. I want to know what your thoughts are, because that was what she was interested in. What are the thoughts of the fixed mindset? What are the thoughts of the growth mindset? So the scenario was, you go to school in the morning, and it's a class you love, it's a professor you love, and you know you're going to get a test returned to you. You get the test back, and it's a C+. At the end of the day, you go to your car, and there's a ticket on your car. So you go home and you call one of your buddies, because you think, oh, my buddy is always there for me, let me talk to her. And your buddy says, I'm sorry, I'm in the weeds, I can't do this right now. And so you feel like she's brushing you off. So she asked each young adult after the scenario, she said, what are your thoughts? And the fixed mindset group, the ones she realized were fixed mindset, said things like, oh, I'm such a loser. Oh my God, I'm not smart. Life is against me. Nothing works out for me, right? And what's interesting is when she was listening to what they were saying, is that the scenario itself was not dire. A C+ is not an F, right? A ticket is not a totaled or towed car. And her friend didn't say, never call me again, and hang up on her. Nothing like that happened. It was a really kind of middle-of-the-road scenario. And yet they really went all the way to this place, right? When she talked to the people who had growth mindset, they said things like, well, I guess I know what I need to learn before the final, so I can ace the final. I guess I know where I shouldn't be parking. And I guess my friend is having a bad day, or she's just really busy. I'll give her a buzz tomorrow and make sure and find a time when we can talk, right? So the thoughts that they were having were completely different. A fixed mindset is internalizing external experiences and making a value judgment about yourself, about your abilities, about your intelligence, about your skill set, whatever it is. The growth mindset is seeing everything as information. They got their eyes on the prize, and everything that happens on the way to the prize is just information. Are they having feelings? They're probably having feelings, but that's not the takeaway, right? Why is this important? Just as I said, if all we're doing is paying attention to our thoughts and not where our thoughts are coming from, we're going to be pulling and replacing and pulling and replacing and pulling and replacing all day, and there's no real growth, right? Mindset determines everything that happens to you. Everything. There's a story of a man who was riddled with tumors. And he had gone to doctor after doctor after doctor. And nothing was changing. No medicine was working. Finally, he went to a new doctor and he said, I am desperate. I know there's a cure for me. Give me something. The doctor looked at his chart. He saw all the medicine this man had taken. And he went into his little stash of, vitamins and minerals and pharmaceuticals. And he came out with a bottle. And he said, I'm going to share this with you. This is such powerful medicine. It is not even available. It's not on the market yet. It's so experimental. But it will melt your tumors like they're snowballs on a hot stove. The man was ecstatic, so we went home. He started taking the medicine, and sure enough, a few months later, no tumors. Completely tumor-free. Now he's getting to the end of his bottle, and he thinks, well, I better go back to the doctor and get more because it's working. And I probably should just stay on this for the rest of my life. So he calls in, and the receptionist says, oh, that doctor is actually out of the country right now, but you can see one of our other doctors. So the man goes, okay, I just need a refill. You know, I want to get checked, and I want a refill. So he goes in, and he says to the doctor, here's this bottle. I just need more pills. The doctor looks at the bottle, and he goes, these are just sugar pills. Now, at that moment, this man had two choices. He could have gone, whoa, that means I did this. Believing it would happen, I did this. Or, and this is what he chose, he could feel like he was tricked. Somebody lied to him. And that whole mindset, that whole reality in which he was tumor-free, completely collapsed. He crawled back home. All the tumors came back. When the doctor who was out of the country returned, he thought, well, let me try this again. Of course, that's not going to work more than once, right? And the man eventually succumbed. But who did that? Who made those tumors disappear? His mindset, right? He believed that he didn't have to live with tumors. Our own founders of Unity did this. Myrtle did this, right? She had TB, and she believed that she was a child of the universe, a child connected to spirit, an expression of spirit. And because she believed that, she said, well, spirit doesn't have TB. Why should I? And she held that mindset. This is not one and done. This isn't one and done. You can't just get up in the morning and go, okay, I'm going to not have TB and then live your regular life. It doesn't work that way. Just like these affirmations and everything we get, the point is to incorporate them, right? The point is to remember when you read an affirmation off this table and you go, whoa, that really speaks to me. Bring it in. I don't know about you, but I get some affirmations that really speak to me, and then I stack them over there on the piano, and then I forget what they were. I mean, that's not how we actually elicit real change, right? Okay. So we know about Myrtle and we know about Charles. How many of you have seen the movie Groundhog Day? Such a good movie, right? Yeah. I just saw it because it was just Groundhog Day. Guess what? 6 more weeks of winter, by the way. So, this is a beautiful example of fixed mindset moving into growth mindset. Because guess what? I wouldn't be up here talking to you if there wasn't a way to move more into growth mindset. I would not do that to you. So, as you know in the story, what's his name? Is his name Phil? It's the name of the groundhog, but I can't remember his name. Okay, all right, we'll call him Bill. Because that's his name. Bill Murray. I don't know about you, but have you ever seen Bill Murray in a serious movie? He's done a couple. His face just has that smirk. And you keep waiting for something funny to happen, right? Even in a serious movie. It doesn't work. Anyway, so he believes in his little fixed mindset that he's the talent. He's a superstar. He's a celebrity, right? And you know what happens. He gets stuck living the same day over and over and over. But what's interesting is how he shifts as he's living that same day. In the beginning, he immediately does what a lot of people would do, and he's like, I can rob a bank, and I'm going to get all this money, and so he does this. He starts robbing banks, he starts gathering money from all kinds of places where he's not supposed to be getting the money, and living high on the hog until the clock resets. Then he moves into womanizing. And he starts using the information. He'd get information one day, and the next day he'd go, oh, Sharon, remember me from 7th grade geography? And so he was doing this, right? He was doing all the things you would think you do to be happy. Was he happy? No. He wasn't happy at all. So then he resorts actually to trying to end it. Steps in front of a bus, jumps in front of a train. That doesn't work either. He's stuck. Every morning he wakes up and it's Sonny and Cher, I Got You, Babe. I don't want to hear that song even once. What starts to change for him? Do you remember? You all said you saw the movie.
20 years.
What starts to happen is he's like, well, I'm stuck here. Maybe I'll start learning things. What else is there to do? Because what's happening internally for him is rolling over, though the clock is resetting. So he starts learning to play the piano. And he gets pretty proficient by the end of the movie. And the really cool thing that he does is he starts thinking about all the bad things that happened in that town and taking steps to prevent them. So you'll see him standing there, he looks at his watch, he goes, uh-oh, and he runs down the street and this little kid falls out of a tree and he grabs him. And he's in a restaurant and he looks at his watch, he's like, oh, I'll be right back. And he goes over and Heimlich's the guy who's choking on his steak. And as he moved in that direction, the day started to feel not long enough for all the things he was trying to accomplish. And we got to that place, then the clock shifted. So he had moved from fixed mindset, which is it's all about me and it's all about my problems and all this, into growth mindset, which is joyful and what can I give back? What good can I do in this world? I bet you didn't know there was such a deep meaning in that movie. Right? You were? Okay, so Alyssa Liu, has anybody been watching her? Isn't she wonderful? Her story is a perfect shift from fixed mindset, this is more in a business sense, to personal growth mindset. Okay, what happened to Alyssa Liu? She started skating when she was 5. And she was on the track, right? To be a skater, to be a professional skater. That means a lot of skating, lots of workouts, it's very rigorous. And she was just walking along that path. That's pretty fixed mindset, right? It's like, here, I'm going to do this, and then this will happen, and then this will happen, and this will happen, and finally I'll reach my goal. I don't even know what her goal was, her original goal. Maybe it was to win Olympic gold. But at 16, she got really burned out. And she said, I don't want to do this anymore. And first of all, I think it's amazing that at this time in the world, a young woman can say that and not be vilified. Because it should be everything, right? It should be your skill set, your work, and everything, and also your joy. That's really critical. We forget about that sometimes. So she stepped away from skating. And then she went skiing for the very first time. And as she was whizzing down the slope, she felt this thrill, and she thought, I have only felt this before on the ice. I think I'm going to try going back. So, I screenshot this morning, so I have this, even though I don't have my iPad. So these are the lists of what she decided she was going to do. She decided to return to skating, but she said, I pick the music. I have full control over the way I look. I get to eat anything I want. Coaches can't starve her anymore. Choreography would be collaborative with her, and she gets to put in any elements in the skating that she wants. She decides when she needs a break from training. She never pushes past her limits, and her father had to step back from her art. No parental interference. And if you watched her skate, did everybody see it? Some of her routines? What was the biggest feeling you could see on her face? Joy. How many times do you see that on these Olympic athletes' faces? Sometimes they're technically great, but you can see that they're like pushing for something. You can see that she just went out and she just wanted to do it. That's incredible, isn't it? That's a movement from fixed to growth. Isn't that great? I love it that we're seeing it in real time. And I had all these other examples, which of course are on the iPad, but that one I screenshot, so we had it. So, moving from fixed mindset to growth mindset. Not hard at all. Okay? We learn from growth mindset people that they just treat everything as information. Something to, how do I move forward? How do I give a talk without an iPad? I just did it. Right? How do I, blah, blah, blah. Think about this. If you were going to a friend's birthday party and you're driving to her house, you're really looking forward to this party because you love your friend, you got her a great present, she's going to have to make her cake, or you've got cake, whatever. You're excited. And as you're about to turn on the street, you realize that the street is closed for construction. So you think, oh, I'll just go to the next street. And that's closed too. And you keep trying and trying and trying, and you can't get in to her neighborhood. There's a lot of things you can do in that situation. You could call your friend and say, hey, all the roads are blocked. And she might say, oh, just come down the alley, park in front of the garage. Or she might say, oh, yeah, just park, half a block away and just walk in. But the point is, the obstacles, the closed roads, everything, are not stops. The goal is to get to your friend's party. So if you start treating everything in your life as, what's the goal? And, oh, here's all this rubbish in the way. Okay, I'll just sail over it, or I'll just navigate it, or whatever. Okay? So the takeaway for today is, can you start looking at everything that happens to you as simply information? Now, we're human. We're all human. And we're going to have feelings. I read an affirmation the other day that I thought was going to be useful. It was, first I cry me a river, then I build me a bridge. So feel your feelings. It is okay to feel your feelings. I am not saying not to do that. But the growth mindset people did not live in those feelings. They did not live with the obstacles. They didn't pull other people in to be part of this whole, cycle of stories. They did not do that, right? They felt their feelings. They didn't even talk about them. We don't know if those young adults had feelings about the C+ or anything. They just went straight to information. So cry you a river, then build you a bridge. Try to see how this works for you in this coming week. Be like a listen you. I had a really nice quote on my iPad. So we're just going to end with meditation. Would you do a little noodling while we talk? So we're going to take a second. We're going to drop down into this space that is our growth mindset. That's our connection to spirit, our connection to this life, our connection to the planet. And we know that we are perfect the way we are. We don't need to prove anything. All we need to do is shine. And as we move through the world, we see external experiences as simply that. External experiences that don't need to be put into our internal selves. No judgment from those experiences. No extrapolating meaning that's not there. just information. And we know that if there's any feeling associated with the information we're getting, it's okay to feel it and let it go quickly. Let it go. It's not what's real. What's real, what is going to give you the tools to move forward in your path, is the information that you are receiving. They may look like boulders, but when you turn and look at the path behind you, you will realize they were stepping stones to reaching your goal. So now let's just hold that intention that we are going to live our lives this way. And we'll hold that in silence for just a few minutes. Now we gently just come back to it. Grateful for every experience that we get to have. Not just today, but forever. Every experience that we get to have is going to show us a better way forward. And we thank you, Spirit, for this beauty and this wisdom and this learning in our lives. Amen.